This episode of The Inspiration Show is incredibly special because one of my favorite people is joining me. Today's guest has had such a profound impact on my life and my theater journey. We're going back to the picture show because today it's me and Bach. The incredibly talented Jake Pedersen is here, and he's sharing his incredible journey from stepping into iconic roles and making magic on stage in some of the most beloved musicals. Jake, thank you so much for being here. I have so much love and admiration for you, and I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me. What a fun intro that was. Work.
So, when did you discover that you had a passion for singing and theater?
Oh, well, I kind of grew up listening to musical theater because my father and my mom, but mostly my dad was really obsessed with the musical Les Mis, and I got to like kind of learn from his love of that show and a few others. But when I was in sixth grade, I got to do the production of Les Mis at our high school. I played Gavroche, and I was like, "What is this crazy thing?" And I kind of just started diving in. I had some people reach out in the community, specifically a woman named Christy Jeter. She runs a community theater, and she just took me under her wing, and we kind of just like went for it. So sixth grade was really the beginning of this journey for me. But yeah, it wasn't fully realized I was going to do this until junior year of high school. But sixth grade was the beginning.
Well, and I loved how Gavroche was your introduction to that. Like, I think that's the perfect introduction to theater is Les Mis and Gavroche.
Absolutely. And the amount of like young men who've played that role and then gone on to do it other like, specifically Gayton, who was,
Yeah.
so it's funny, there's like parallels there. So
Oh my God, the Gavroche to Frankie pipeline.
that's the way. Mine
Yeah.
was, of course, a high school production, but let me tell you, I felt like I was on the Broadway back then. Okay.
Oh, oh, hell yeah. So, what would you say really inspired you to become a performer and who's been an inspiration of yours throughout the years?
um, I think, uh, wow. I think what's been inspiring to me to be a performer is this idea that you are able to chase this version of a dream or some version of happiness in a field that is so uncertain. And don't get me wrong, it's scary sometimes, but I think it's so exciting that there are people like me, like you, like all of us who are artists just trying to do something that makes us feel good. We're really, trying to tell stories, create art, but connect with others. And it's inspiring to be a part of a niche, very small, intimate community. We are talking about this earlier, but like it is so special to be in a community, and that's always inspirational to me. And when it comes to people who like inspire me, of course, my parents always inspire me, the way that they have handled their lives. When it comes to performers and like educators, a lot of my professors inspire me because they've created their own paths. There's no right way to do this, but there is a way that makes you feel good. And so, again, chasing that feeling of happiness or what feels right, that always inspires me. So, like Christy Jeter, John Simpkins, a lot of other people, Beverly Patton, Raymond Sage, a lot of people. I could go on for hours and hours, but there's a lot of mentors that have really inspired me.
Yeah, truly one of my favorite parade memories, and there's a lot of them, is when I was out in the audience. I got to sit next to one of your teachers at Penn State, and just like watching her watch you was just the most beautiful thing in the whole world. Because there's nothing more special that a child could give their teachers, seeing them up on the Broadway. So that was really
I
special.
owe a lot to those people. They really are the reason I got to where I'm at. So thankful for that.
Can you take us back to the first time you ever experienced theater and how you were feeling at the time?
Yeah, first time I've ever experienced theater, like watching theater.
Yeah, could be watching
Um,
theater, doing theater.
oh gosh, I don't even know. Like I was my family, we never really like went to the theater growing up until I started getting into it. And
Mm.
so the first time I like watched a show was after Les Mis, I think, and it was um I think it was Wicked.
Oh my God, no way.
I think I saw the national tour of Wicked as like my first big show that I saw in the touring company. And that was like, wow, what the heck is this? And then eventually I started seeing like shows in high school that other high school shows were doing, and I saw other community theater shows and things like that. But yeah, I can't remember the first time that I like saw another production. So that's a horrible answer for you.
No,
But
I love it. The Wicked full circle is like seeing the first national of Wicked
yeah,
and being on the second national as Bog. Like what?
it's kind of wild. Like I came late to the journey of watching theater. Like even
Yeah.
like my first Broadway show that I saw in New York on Broadway was Dear Evan Hansen, and that
Oh,
was
let's go.
That was when I was in high school and, not too long ago, but, I saw things at home and yeah, but I wish I knew my first show that I saw. That's a great question. Sorry.
That full circle though with The Wicked and the Dear Evan Hansen, full circles are my favorite. I love them.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're originally from Pittsburgh and you trained at the Pittsburgh CLO Academy and then you won the Gene Kelly Award for Best Actor, which led you to the Jimmy Awards for your performance as Joseph in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And fast forward to now, you've got a BFA in musical theater from Penn State and you're based in New York. So looking back, how did this journey kind of come together for you? And was there a moment when you knew performing was what you were meant to do?
Yeah, you got my resume right there. That's
I
me.
know, sorry, I kind of jam-packed all of that.
I loved it. Yeah, I'm a twin, and so my twin brother and I, we're friends, of course. We love him to death, but we are very different. And growing up as a twin, sometimes there's like a sense of competition or just you need your own identity. And so he was very much like the athletic, smart guy, and there's not much left outside besides like common sense and artistic. So I kind of took those ones, and I ran with that. We kind of did sports together a little bit. It was never my cup of tea. I did gymnastics. That was my sport. Um, but I landed on musical theater and I kind of didn't know it was going to be my thing. I didn't know. I was just kind of doing it as a hobby, but I kind of was just continued to get random opportunities and excited to like dive into them. And I found out that it was like a niche thing I was kind of good at. There weren't many guys that were doing the same thing. I was lucky about that. I was kind of like one of a few. And yeah, so I kind of, again, went to the Jeter's Backyard Theater community theater, and stayed there and trained there for a while, not really realizing what I wanted to do. I tried to be like a pop singer for a minute. I like did local competitions and wrote some songs that weren't the best, but they were fun. I recorded them in a recording session and everything, and I tried to think that that was going to be my journey, but never really like stuck because it didn't feel right either. But then you get to high school and you kind of are pressured in a way that you have to make these decisions at such a young age. And even like now I'm 26, but I feel like I'm still a child. But I know I'm not. But deciding what your life is going to be as a teenager is so daunting. And where I was, it was kind of like a STEM program school, and everyone gets these like very respectable careers. Not that musical theater isn't, but there's not many people who did it. And so I kind of chose to do the more business marketing side of things. I took Excel spreadsheet coding class, and I didn't take any singing. I wasn't in choir. I wasn't in any theater classes my freshman year of high school because I thought that's what I was going to do. I was going to follow the pipeline here, make money somehow in the a way that was respectable. Sorry, my cat is on. Um, and so I, wasn't really focused in that way. But then sophomore year was coming along, and you had to pick electives and all that stuff. And a choir teacher took me under his wing, and he was like, "Hey, I don't know what you're doing. Why aren't you auditioning for choir? Why are you're doing musicals? You do that every year, and that's kind of your thing. Like, why don't you go for this? I want you to be a part of my choir." His name's Lee Rickard. He really took me under his wing. We are friends. I'm grateful for him, but he kind of changed my direction in high school sophomore year. So then I started doing choir. I started really leaning into the musical theater things, taking more classes at the community theater, but also setting my sights on Pittsburgh CLO, their mini star kind of uh, curriculum. I couldn't really get myself to and fro because I am a twin. I have a little brother. I couldn't like schedule out wise, couldn't get there easily. So, I tried my best to just keep honing in on my craft in a way that was affordable, but also like realistic. And then junior year came along and I had a director named Jim Scriven who also worked at the CLO. And he took me under his wing. I'm telling you, I had so many mentors that helped me along the way. And he really was like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "I think so. I don't know." And so he kind of showed me the ropes of how CLO works, what they have to offer. I auditioned for their mini star program. I got in. But then I also was lucky enough to do that Gene Kelly journey. So it kind of just started shaping itself in a weird way. And because of that, I was also in the same time of auditioning for colleges because junior year is the time to do that. So it was overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. But again, I had all these people to fall back on. No one really knew like what was going to happen. We all hoped and crossed our fingers, and I did the work, they did their work, and we all were supporting each other, but really supporting me. and I got lucky enough to win that award, go to the Jimmys. But I did all these auditions, and I got rejected to every college I auditioned for except for one, and that wasn't even the school I went to. And so, I was met with this weird form of rejection, uh, and began to realize what was going to happen. But I'm giving you a TED talk on this question. But basically, that's kind of how it all began, and kind of shaped my career path.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's so special because you realize that you do have a village, but like the first thing that they teach you in theater school or that you'll learn when you're an actor, or like everyone even knows this, like rejection is the root of this industry. And like you'll get rejected again and again and again, but you just got to keep training, like you said, keep honing in on your craft and it'll happen for you. I truly believe that what's meant for you won't pass you by.
Yeah, and I really do believe that, like, the keeping a healthy perspective of what success looks like for you specifically, is it's really hard to do. Don't get me wrong. I get it twisted sometimes, and I get in my own way and spiral here and there. That's a human experience, I feel, but maintaining a healthy perspective with what that means is
Yeah.
helping me at least.
And I think it's so important, especially in the theater world, to define success in your own way and be like, what can I do on my path? Because everyone has a different path and how that will lead you to success.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah. So, of course, we have to talk about the Jimmy Awards because the Jimmys are such a defining moment for so many young performers. So, what did that experience kind of mean to you? And do you feel that it like influenced your path to Penn State in any way? And then do you think your time in both the Jimmys and in Penn State shaped who you are as a performer?
Yes, absolutely. All of it shaped me for sure. I think the Jimmys really began to shape my career and like my understanding of this industry in a beautiful way. The Jimmys, when I was in 2017, is very different than what it is now. But it's also has its similarities. Back then, you had to audition, which you still have to do. You had to audition to be in a medley, and then of course audition to be a finalist. I got lucky enough to be in a medley where I went for Joseph, and it was really fun. But I did not get a finalist position. I didn't make it very far in that program, but I was lucky enough to be there. And I think a lot of times the Jimmy Awards is really hyped up now in a really exciting way. But being a student, a teenager, deciding your life and now having all this focus on you is crazy. And I can't imagine what it must feel like nowadays. I know what it felt like then, but it feels wild. But that being said, it's a week-long intensive. I had never really been to New York for more than 2 days, and so I was living in the NYU dorms. It took place at NYU when I was there. And so I was living with a roommate that I just met for the first time. That was not a new experience for me. And I started like doing things at 8 a.m. and like getting up and training and learning these things. And so all of a sudden, my schedule was rigid and structured in a way that I was not used to. And it was very specific to musical theater. I didn't go to a performing arts school, so it was wild to be around all these artists who were all wanted the same thing. It was very new. And so I think that was cool to understand that there is a world out there to see other people hone in on their craft and be surrounded by beautiful creative processes. Then you do this whole 7-day thing, and it's a fast-paced process. You have to keep your health, but as a teenager I wasn't really worrying about that. I was lucky enough to not get crazy sick, but I was tired. Some people weren't as lucky, but yeah, so I did that process and didn't make it far, but had such a beautiful time. Learned so much so fast just about maintaining the body, learning things fast, and understanding that this might be what my next 4 years look like in a way, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm glad I had that. In terms of my getting into Penn State, the Jimmy Awards happened after my acceptance came in from them, but definitely infiltrated my how I learn in Penn State because now I knew and understood what happens kind of here in New York in a way. Um, yeah, so it was kind of like a dream come true of mine. Don't get me wrong, to be a part of the Jimmys. I was like so infatuated with this idea of the Gene Kelly Awards, the regional competition, that I just wanted. I used to say how they used to go is you get a black, not a white little square of spotlight, and you'd hit a pose when they say your name. That's all I ever wanted. I was like, oh my god, I wanted them to say my name, and I'll scream real loud on the Benetton stage. And so I had no idea I was going to win that award. I was up against two other amazing actors who had been nominated and won before and have become finalists at the Jimmy Awards before. So I was like, there's no way it's going to be me. So I didn't prepare a speech or anything, but everything was so new and exciting to me. And such an honor. So I kind of just walked into the Jimmy Awards becoming this sponge and so grateful to be there. And that really is how I try to go through life in any process, because nothing is guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is your ability to be that sponge and absorb if you want it to be. And so it all infiltrates each other and it all comes back, because I feel like every year the Jimmy Awards happens, of course, but every year I do some version of helping with them or performing with them this year or doing some sort of talk back. And like it has been such a blessing to be a nominee, but also be a source of, hey, this can happen for you if you don't make it far in this process. It is not end all be all. Sure, aim for that winning. Like, yeah, we all want to win, sure, but also you've won just being there. And just that perspective alone has infiltrated everything else in my life.
Yeah. I know everyone always says like the awards are not the cherry on top. It's the experience that you get and it's the journey that matters. And I really, really agree with that. And like you said earlier, I want to touch on that because I'll never forget you saying that to me. And it's the greatest advice I honestly think I've ever been given is just be a sponge.
Yeah.
And like whenever you're learning, like just soak up everything because you never know, like the professors that you're working with, you never know when you're going to learn from them again. And it's not even just the professors, it's people that you watch up on stage or like other actors. Like just be a sponge and soak up everything that you learn and see because when you get to add that to your toolbox, that's when you become strong. Is when you take what you know, but you also take what you can learn from others and it's incredible to watch yourself kind of flourish and see how you can grow when you really soak everything up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm excited to chat about this because we've never actually talked about this together
Okay.
before. It was your first national tour, Escape to Margaritaville. We've never
Yeah.
talked about this before. So
Spin it up.
what was it like stepping into your first tour, and were there any standout moments or lessons from life on the road doing this show that really stuck with you?
Oh my goodness, what a different life it felt like back then. It was still fun. I literally thought this was everything I wanted and more, and it was. At the time, it was so beautiful to be a part of. I was in the ensemble. I had no lines. I was singing in the ensemble in like the tenor two line. I was not doing what I usually do nowadays. I was the tumbler track, and so if they had to like cut a microphone, mine would first and would be given away. Like I was living it up in the ensemble, and it was honestly so hard. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Um, because my body was going through it. I was a dancer and I was tumbling, and what it was a non-union national tour, and it was technically a bus and truck tour. And so, for those listening who don't know what that means, it's exactly what it sounds like. We travel by bus and truck, and only sometimes do we travel by plane. But that being, it's because we had one-nighters, and there was a bunch of tours out there right now that do this right now. Still, it's a thing that happens where like you will be in a venue, a theater. So say I'll be in like Ohio. Okay, we'll be in Columbus one night, and then we'll have one show in Columbus, and then the next day we'll have a show in Cleveland. And so that night we go back to our bed in a hotel room, and then the next morning at 8 a.m. the bus pulls around. We get in that bus, we travel, we load in, we do whatever company meeting we need to, we sound check, we make sure we're good, we eat, we do the show, rinse and repeat. And that is kind of what we do for months at a time. There were some times where we'd sit down for like 3 days, and I was like, "Oh, this is luxurious." But yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful tour. It was around. I was surrounded by a bunch of young artists who kind of also just graduated. Some people were on the tour prior. I joined the tour, Escape to Margaritaville, after the COVID pandemic kind of let up, and so I remounted with the cast that was rejoining as well. I replaced one of the guys who moved up to the dance captain swing position. And I was on that tour for about 4 or 5 months, and yeah, it was a whirlwind experience. I booked it off of a self tape right after college, and I remember vividly I was in the U-Haul with my partner's father, moving to Brooklyn, New York, and I had a final callback via just like tape. They're like, "Can you send us a tumbling reel?" And at this point, I had not tumbled in like a long time in a way that I was like, "Yeah, I'm a tumbler." But I pulled together videos from when I was a freshman in high school to freshman in college, young, right? And I was like, okay. And I was doing tricks that I could not do. And I was like, I could relearn, and I booked it. And so then I started going to this place called Brooklyn Zoo, and I started retraining myself to how to do this because I had to do it for sometimes more than 8 shows a week because it was non-union and we were not protected. Um, but it was a wild time, and it was so exciting to be a part of something like that. We did perform with Jimmy Buffett a few times. And let me tell you, Escapes Margaritaville has a cult following. People tailgated our shows, were ready for it. We had such a blast. And I still stay in touch with a lot of friends from that show. I actually have a neighbor who we hang out every week almost, and he and I did Escapes Margaritaville together. So, you form bonds in a way. And it was such a beautiful, I could talk about it for hours. It was a beautiful experience.
I'm obsessed, and, like, you getting to perform with Jimmy Buffett a bunch, and then the year you did the Jimmys, Ben was the host, and then performing with Ben, like, it's so full circle, that's wonderful, and I have to ask, just out of my own curiosity, what was it like being put into a show that was already, like, out on the road? Like, how was that adjustment for you?
So for Escapes Margaritaville, I was lucky to remount with it. So we had a whole tech process, and it was
Oh,
in Tulsa,
amazing.
Oklahoma, and so it was kind of like a really big regional production, just like on the road. And so we got to all rehearse like together. It was fast paced because everyone else still knew it, but yeah, it was kind of nice in that way. For Wicked, I was put into a show that was already going, and that was a new experience for me. I had a put in process where it was just the new people coming in. And lucky enough, it was all new principals. So we did the whole entire show. But if it was just me, we would have skipped around and I would have never experienced the entire show until day of. But yeah, it was still wild to like be the only one in costume and be like, hey, I'm pretending to be someone. Everyone else is in like Lululemon and we're all like pretending with a
Oh,
piano and that's it in this cavernous space in Spokane, Washington.
yeah.
And then for Parade, I of course was joining the Broadway company, and it was a new Broadway revival, but they already did it earlier on, and I was part of the new company. Some of the company was already done it, so it was kind of similar to the Escapes Margaritaville process, where it was fast, and we still were protected and like taken care of the new people, but we only had so much time, and so we got a whole tech process, and it was nice to still feel like we had a rehearsal process, but it was fast and furious and fun, and it's been fun to like kind of be that sponge and learn how to adjust in those experiences and bringing it back to the Jimmys. That's where it all started to be like, okay, everything's new, everything's different, and just be okay to go with the flow, you know?
Yeah, everything's just being thrown at you, and you gotta soak it up, gotta be a sponge. Oh,
Absolutely.
so after Escape to Margaritaville, you headed to Oz in the second national tour of Wicked, portraying the role of Bach. So how did it feel to join such an iconic show, and what was it like stepping into that Wicked world on the road?
Yeah, so my first audition for Wicked was when I was on Escape to Margaritaville, and they asked me to audition for the Broadway company. I had a final callback. I flew into New York, and I didn't get it. I did not book it that time, and that's okay. And then at that time, Escape to Margaritaville closed, and I did a regional gig in Michigan called Writing Kevin Taylor, which is a three-person show written by Will Van Dyke, and we were there having a good time. And Wicked called my agent and said, "Hey, can we have him come in for the tour?" So I flew back into New York. I did the audition again. It felt really good. And then the next Monday, I got a call saying you booked Bach on the national tour of Wicked. I cried my eyes out. But that being said, I had one day after that gig to fly to New York, pack up my life, go to Spokane, Washington, where I started. Joining that show was a dream come true. Um, Everyone loves that show. I love that show. I've known about it for years. I would like manifest for myself when I was in callbacks for it. Like I was like, I'm gonna get this. I hope it's a life changer in a way. You get to like join this iconic thing, and we didn't know the movies were coming out yet, but it was still like a happening thing and so exciting to be a part of. It's never gonna go anywhere, and I'm honored to be trusted with that role. Um, I would be honored to just be in it. And so to be offered Bach on the national tour was wild. So I walked in and I've got a lot of imposter syndrome. I feel like a lot of people do in this industry, but I have a lot of it. And so I walked in and I was very scared, very nervous, and it was still COVID times technically, right? So everything was masked up. We would do those tests every week, rapid tests every day, but we do twice a week at one time. We would do the other tests. Anyway, so it was kind of a weird time, but also still exciting, and we did feel celebrated. But oh my God, it was like such a dream come true to step into this magic place called Oz and really get to relive that magic every time we got to go to a new city because not only was it Wicked coming back, but it was after COVID. So it was like the first piece of theater people were seeing after the pandemic. And it was like so many special things. And it's such a big show that, like, selfishly, sometimes as an actor, it's hard to tell people you're a musical theater performer, and they're like, "Oh, what do you do? Wait tables?" Like, there's this joke, right? And I'm like, whatever. Sometimes that hurts. Sometimes you can just let it roll off. But for the first time, I was able to be like, "Yeah, I'm a musical theater performer." And when they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" and you say Wicked, there's no question anymore. And so that experience isn't really a common one in musical theater. Sometimes it's like you go to Alabama or wherever, and people are like, "What does that mean, musical theater?" But if you say the words "wicked," they understand. And so that was a really cool new thing, and kind of opened my eyes. Like, wow, this is changing stuff. So I'm grateful to that company. I'm grateful that they had me back, and I continue to be grateful for everything that comes my way because of it. So.
Yeah. And like you said, like Wicked is this phenomenon, like everyone knows it. Like even if you're not a theater person, like you'll say Wicked and people will be like, I know exactly what that is. And like I have to ask, what was it like for you being part of the 20th anniversary cast? Like that must have been so special. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were doing it, you were playing Bach when the movie came out. So like to have that movie, like nobody knew there was going to be a movie like when it opened 20 years ago. Like no one knew it was going to be this crazy big thing. So what was that like for you to be part of the 20th anniversary and to be doing it when the movie came out and like have all these new generations kind of get introduced?
It is truly a dream to be. If there's any time to be in Wicked, I got lucky with the timing of it all. I mean, I don't know if, besides opening it on Broadway and being like, the 10th or, other 15th anniversary, but like even then, like I have really gotten so lucky with the timing of when I played that role. I joined before the 20th anniversary cast came together. I was kind of like the final puzzle piece, and then that they said this is our 20th anniversary company. And so, we had a lot of rehearsals. Nothing was always, the same show. It's never going to change per se, but like we made sure we were ready for that 20th anniversary company. And we knew the movies were announced, that was happening. They were filmed and they were going to come out. But, we didn't know much about it. And so the 20th anniversary show was something I have never experienced in my life ever. It was as if Wicked had just opened on Broadway. We'd won like the amount of uproar and applause we had, and it was it was insane because it wasn't just one performance. We had a green and pink performance and then the 20th anniversary, so everyone got like gift bags. There were so many events to lead up to it. Was like this anticipated thing. And so, the pink performance, all the Glinda alumni came. The green performance, all the Alphaba came. But like specifically the 20th was insane because every line had standing ovations, applause. I had entrance applause that was insane. And it was like emotional. Like I was like, whoa, like I'm part of this legacy thing. And because I was this a part of 20th anniversary, I got like they have this book, The Grimmery, but also like this other kind of like um, big playbill program that you can get of Wicked. And I'm in one of them as this 20th anniversary Bach. And like, I feel so honored to be part of this legacy of men, but then also like do this production and feel the uproar. We had this beautiful party afterwards and got to just meet everyone, which like I wouldn't be able to meet these people otherwise. And so it's just fun to play along and dress up and have these fun little outfits and go on this green carpet because it was a green carpet. It was this beautiful, beautiful experience. And then the movie was coming out in November, and I was like, I got extended. I was able to stay, and that wasn't a guaranteed thing. And they just asked me to stay, and I said absolutely. And so because of that, it's mostly of the same producing team, different cast, of course, but we got to see the movie before it was aired anywhere else. They took the entire original Broadway company and the current Broadway company. We got together in New York City, went to a very intimate screening of it. And Christian Chenoweth was there, John Chu was there, of course, Mark Platt, all the producing. But like, it was really fun to see Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, like everyone was there. We got to meet them, shake hands with them, talk with them, and then celebrate again and have another party. And we got to watch this beautiful show, and we had to be quiet about it, not tell anyone. But it was so special. And I felt like this elite little club that I was in. And wow, I'll never forget those experiences. And I got to continue, doing the show after the fact, and being a part of a show that then has a movie come out was another experience, right? Because people anticipate seeing it, so they go and see the show in live real fast just to remind themselves of what's going on. And then
Exactly.
so that feels wild. People are upward applause again. It's like this new show all of a sudden, and it's like, whoa, it's so sick to be in Wicked again. Not that it wasn't cool ever, but like it was really special again. And then the movie comes out, and the audience doesn't stop coming. Sold out every night. Even now, still, it's still like really sold out. But it was a different vibe. People like who had never seen the show had seen the movie now. Now there's this new discussion of, oh, I've saw the movie, but I didn't see the Broadway company. So it's fun to like hear audiences' reactions really because it changed. All of a sudden, people know something else and they're watching it either like, okay, what are you gonna do? I know what this looks like. So what is this actor gonna do? Or they're blown away by the differences, right? And then specifically now, we still haven't seen the second movie. And so a lot of audiences are blown away by Act Two who have no idea what Wicked is about. And so there's so many secrets that I won't spoil, but a lot of people know. And that has also been such a beautiful blessing to be a part of an experience. But yeah, Wicked is it's a thing, and I am part of that little cog. That I'm a cog in the big clock of it all, and I'm like blessed because of that.
It's incredible, and, like, I relate to that so much because, like, for me, of course, I saw the show on Broadway before seeing the movie, so I've had all those conversations with friends and family of like, "Oh, I know how they do this on Broadway, I'm wondering how they do it in the movie." And then I had friends that were oblivious to how, like, Defying Gravity works on Broadway, and they were like, "Oh, it's just a movie, like, it's just effects." I'm like, "No, it happens in front of you, like, you see it, like, on Broadway," and just, like, getting to watch new people fall in love with it, whether they know the show or not, that was so cool to see because it's so different to see it happen live in front of your eyes and then also on the big screen with all these effects. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really special. I think they did a beautiful job with it. I am of selfishly always going to be a fan of the OG like Broadway production, but I
I
am so happy that there's a way for other people to have the ability to see Wicked. You know, it's not theater's not cheap and it's not easy to get to sometimes, and so I'm grateful that that exists. You know.
Yeah, it's such a special one. So I'm so curious as to what your process was like making Bach your own. What was your rehearsal process like to bring your own unique take on a role that was so well known and beloved?
Yeah. It's a little interesting because like it's 22 years old at this point, and so I didn't want to like do a disservice, but I think inherently as actors, you bring yourself to a role. You're hired to like be yourself in this role, but there are guide rails. So I had a process in Spokane, Washington, with the stage manager and dance captains that kind of just shaped. It was blocking and like where you go here, where you say this, and then that kind of stuff. And it was up to me to decide that. And you kind of like our stage manager said, you're in previews the first week of
Yeah.
performances, which feels nuts, but that's really true because that's how shows work, but not when they're already going. So I made choices and decided what I was going to do, and they did not work. And I got noted, and I was like, "Hey," they said, "Hey, rein it in here. This is, So the creative team comes back. They upkeep their show. They do a very good job of having creatives come in, rehearse, and like make sure that everyone's touching it in their way, and the story is still being told in a way that is respectable and paying respect to the OG production. So I there are some things that I did that were cut, and there are some things that I got to keep, which was really fun. And just the way that I kind of just let myself breathe with it all was fun. There are videos out there of me doing it on tour, and it's completely different than I did on Broadway. And I'm very critical of myself as an actor, so I'm like, I will never watch those. But there are things that I kept for life with my time in Wicked, and one of them was this bow that I did. I would fold in half whenever I bowed to Nessa Rose or when I danced, and I really enjoyed like my fun little quirks that I got to put on them. But really, Bach is such a beautiful character because he's so human. He wants to be loved. He has a crush, and he ultimately loses his mind because he just wants something that he technically can't have. And just playing with the nuances of that very human experience was easy kind of to tap into because we all have a version of that in us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's my favorite part too of being an actor is like bringing yourself to a role. And like it's also so fun to see like other people who have played the role and how they do it so differently, and like how just the emphasis of like one word can change the whole meaning. And it's just so beautiful to see when everyone brings their own color to it, and like the rainbow that it makes is really special. And
Yeah.
like I have to talk about it, I'm sorry, but like going back to like the Wicked movie, like the whole me and Bach thing blowing up, like that never crossed my mind when I saw it on Broadway. And then when it started blowing up, I was like, I love how the movie is breathing new life into these lines. It was the funniest thing.
The amount of memes that come out of that is crazy. Like, I'd come out of the stage door and people just sing that, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay." I don't know how to handle it, you know? And even, like, on stage sometimes, Nessa, who Natalie Ortega, when she
Yeah.
played it, a lot, there would be, like she'd say, "Me and Bach," and people would be like, "What?" It's, like, out of nowhere. I'm like, "What is going on?" But, yeah, it's a really cool thing that does happen.
Yeah, no, it was so cool to see how like new generations fall in love with it. And like I felt that way with Parade too myself. Is like I didn't know the show very well until the revival, and just falling in love with a piece that I didn't know could mean so much to me. And having it be an older piece and like recognizing it at a certain time in my life at a certain age. Like it's so cool to see how like new versions of, I don't want to say old works, but of old works, and how they breathe new life and new air into it. It's so special to see how people recognize it.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of revivals, really.
Yeah, I love it. So after touring with Wicked, how long were you on tour? You did what, 2.5 years on tour?
I did technically only 9 and like a half months on
And a
tour
half.
with it, and then
Yeah,
I like
and then
did a year and a half, more than a half on Broadway. So it was a 2.5 year endeavor.
overall. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So after touring, you got the chance to step back into Bach, but this time on Broadway. So what was it like returning to the show, and kind of the biggest challenges and transitions from tour to Broadway? Because I can only imagine how different that must have been.
Yeah, it's the same show, of course, but there are differences that not many people know about. The one big one is that the show on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater is on a raked stage, so there's slight angle, and everything is just that. And that is an old theater practice that a lot of theaters used to have, just so that for sight lines for the audience. However, it's not really the healthiest thing for performers to do that 8 shows a week in a show that they didn't realize is going to be on Broadway for years and years and years. So it takes a toll on your body. Big difference for sure. Other big difference is there's more bodies on stage on Broadway than there is on tour. On tour, they made it more minimal, combined tracks together so that like it's just easier to travel. Made more sense for the what they needed on the road. It was the second national too that I was on, so technically they even made more other cuts to the show that like the bridge doesn't work. It's just a silhouette. So there's set pieces that are different. Also, everything is automated on Broadway, and on tour it is not. Everything is pushed out by a character or like an actor, and then pulled in by people backstage on a rope. It's kind of fascinating because it looks automated, but the only thing that's automated on tour is the dragon, and on Broadway the dragon's a puppet. So it's weird differences like that. When it comes to like my character alone, pretty similar. Same costume, same words, same blocking. It's just the matter of angling and being in a different location. Even to the end of the show, bows. I came at a different side than I did for tour for bows. Very strange, but like things like that. So it was easy to jump back into it, but it was kind of a mind like weirdness happening upstairs because I was like, okay, this feels so familiar but foreign at the same time because I'm doing it on the left foot now instead, you know.
Yeah.
That was a huge difference. What else? I think also just my process getting into it was different because it was just me joining this time instead of anyone else. So I felt a little more comfortable because I've done it before. Whereas if I didn't, I think I'd be very nervous. But it was a new company that I didn't know anyone on the show. I knew the touring company, but not many people uh, that I know, right? They do a good job of bringing tour people to Broadway when the
Yeah.
time is right and things. So some familiar faces, but for the most part, I was by myself. Um, but yeah, I joined Wicked right after Parade closed, August 6th it closed, and I joined Wicked August 7th in rehearsals, and I made my debut the next week, August 14th. So I had 1 week, but not even. It was really we only used 4 days of that week to rehearse, and then Wicked is really lucky to have in the Gershwin Theater a studio upstairs where they rehearse. But because I was being put into the show so fast, I didn't even use it. We went right on the stage before the show happened, and the former stage manager and dance captain they would have me come out, and they instead of like breaking down everything, they already knew I had an understanding. So I'd come out, I put my boots on, they go, okay, what happens at the beginning of the show? And I'm like, okay, it was like a quiz. Like how does the show happen? What do you remember? And we'll fill in the blanks. And so that was interesting, but it was helpful because I was like, oh right, I do know this. And they trusted that I did too. And then yeah, so things that changed, they helped me fill in the blanks. But other than that, I was in after a week and I was pretty used to the differences. And that is what lives in my body now. I feel like if I was asked to go back on tour, I'd be like, oh, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. It's crazy to snap out of the autopilot. I mean, speaking from personal experience, when you do 8 shows a week, like everything, like once you hit like your third week of shows, in my opinion, that's my sweet spot. That's when things start to become like autopilot. So I can't imagine like snapping out of that and like kind of getting out of the autopilot and being like, wait, I need to do this now. And
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, it's wild, and like I think it is very easy to do that. Like right, push and play, we're playing it, right? But then like all of a sudden something will happen on stage, and you're like, oh, where am I? Who am I? Why am I? And like it's a wild thing. Live theater's nuts, but yeah, after 3 weeks and after like even one, it's just like okay, we're doing it, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, I did that show over 600 times, and
crazy.
yeah,
That's
I
insane.
have I have nightmares sometimes about missing cues. So.
No, I love your stage manager quizzing you on the show though. Like, cause that's so real. Cause I feel like sometimes you go out on stage after doing the show for so long, and then you get to the point where it's like, what do I do? But you're like, I've been doing this show 1,000 times. Or like, my favorite thing is I'll never forget this. I was in a show. Was thinking about my next line, couldn't come to me, and the second I knew I had to say it, I opened my mouth and it just came out.
Yeah, it's wild how
It
muscle
was like
memory
it's crazy how muscle memory and that like autopilot kind of thing like works.
is scary, but it happens.
It happens. That's what we do. That's our job. That's showbiz. Uh,
Yeah.
so having played Bach both on tour and on Broadway, how do you feel your portrayal of him kind of evolved after performing the show across the country and then getting to step back into the role on Broadway?
Yeah, I definitely like made him change, which is fun. Looking back on videos, I didn't even realize I did this, but I put more on of a voice on tour. I was like speaking more nasally and like sounding like a munchkin. And I was like, what was I doing? I made him less human on tour, I feel like, and that's on me. I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I don't like it. So I would, if I could change that, that's what I'd change. Then when I got to Broadway, I made him a little more grounded. He's more of a human. The biggest note I always got was he's the heart of the show. He's the heart. Just lead with the heart. And I was like, okay, what does that mean to me, right? And so I kind of just like let him be a human munchkin, but like be myself. I just like kind of let it be a thing. And I've realized through Wicked, but other experiences too. But in Wicked, you can't play the joke. It has to be authentic, and you have to just do the thing, and then it'll be funny because that's the point. And so, leaning into just being rather than trying to be Bach and being funny is what kind of changed for me. I was lucky enough to be in the show for so long, so I got to really relax into it and make choices that I feel like takes a while for some people to make kind of those fun choices because it's a matter of comfort. And so I was able to feel comfortable and evolve with him.
Yeah. I think it's so special for you too, because like not a lot of people get the chance to step into a role that they've already played, but also like when you get to grow as a person with it and like gain all these new experiences, it's going to change your portrayal. And I think that's so special and unique because not a lot of people get the chance to rediscover something.
Yeah,
So
no, it's fun. And like things that also changed too. Like I really was obsessed with these socks, and I have a few pairs in my wardrobe. But I called them my box socks. They were like literally the colors of the bi flag, which is funny because I don't know, it's just like outlandish and Munchkin world. But they changed the socks on me one time, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm a different person." I don't know. I don't know how to take this. One time they were rainbow, and maybe Bach was a little fruity that day. Who knows?
I love that. Not them changing the socks on you.
It was horrible. I was so mad, but also it was
Oh,
exciting at the same time.
oh. I'm so excited for your answer to this next one because I don't think I've ever asked you this, but during your time with Wicked, what was your like defying gravity moment? Like the most memorable, life-changing moment that you had with the show?
Yeah. I have a few of those.
Go
I
for it.
I think the beginning of my process with Wicked was such a whirlwind dream come true thing, and I don't know if this is technically allowed, but there was a company member who was really close with the like head carpenters and guys backstage, and so when you're on tour, there's a few traditions that you can do when you join and leave. I won't share one of them because I think it's I'll tell you after. I think you know what I mean. But there was one where we were watching, we were trailing the show, and we had to wear all blacks because we were backstage, and it was me and my friend Kimmy, who was the Nessa Rose on tour at that point. And there was a company member who's like, "Hey, have you ever watched Defying Gravity on stage?" I was like, "What the hell you mean? You watched on stage? No." So Bach and Nessa are not in Defying Gravity, and they're not in the majority of Act Two either, but like we don't see part of the green show that we're a part of. It's like very interesting that way. But the first week we were there, we were in our blacks and we got to go backstage. And when the company goes underneath the dress to come out for the Defying Gravity moment, they took us with them, and we were behind the levitator. We were behind everyone else, and so we were on stage watching Defying Gravity from a perspective I will never see again. And I was like, wow, I am in Wicked right now, and I'm getting chills talking about it.
It's
That's one.
insane.
It
That is
was
your defying gravity moment, literally.
it was Defying Gravity. That was one huge, huge thing that I'll never forget. Another one was one I'll share with you later. I have two of those, but then the next one I think would be the 20th anniversary,
Yeah.
as well as my debut as Bach, because there's a specific moment that Bach comes out for the first time as Bach. I'm in the opening number in disguise, and so, but no one knows. And the equity rule is once you're established as your principal character, you have to remain as that character, even in ensemble members moments. Anyway, so he comes out for da 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 da, and I have to like hold this suitcase and pose, and I had done that for so many times, so many months on the tour. And I was, of course, I've always dreamed of doing it on Broadway too. And the first time I got to do that, I teared up a little bit because I was like, whoa, I'm here, I'm doing it. And I got entrance applause. My family was out there. So it was a week like, woo, but I felt on top of the world. I did that. And so that's another huge defying gravity moment. How special to be a working actor, but also be able to say I did Bach on Broadway. And
Yeah.
there I was. So
Not a lot of people can say that. And that role, like you said, it's the heart of the show. It's the most special part. And I'm so glad you got to do it because you were perfect.
that's very kind.
So
Uh,
I'm excited to dive into this next part because that is how you came into my life, and I'm forever grateful. So you made your Broadway debut in Parade, portraying the role of Frankie Epps. So what was it like being part of bringing this meaningful story to light on a Broadway stage?
Oh gosh, it was so special. It was just a gift that keeps on giving, really. But yeah, I had no idea what was about to happen in my life when I got the audition that they were looking for someone to replace Frankie Epps and maybe even the young soldier. I originally auditioned for Frankie Epps, Frankie Cover, and young soldier.
That
And
I did not know. Young soldier. Okay, fancy.
so I had all of the material ready. I thought I was being looked at as a swing because I had all these other things prepared. And so I would have said yes to that too. Um, but my audition process for that thing is a wild thing, and we can get into that if we need. But it was like out of a movie. And when I got the call that I was making this Broadway debut, it was so surreal because I not only had to leave Wicked early because of it, I had to learn the show. And I kind of knew about it, right? I went to musical theater school. We learned about this show. It's a thing that we studied and did theses on. And people love this deep, meaningful show. And so coming into Broadway was such a special thing because it was a time that we really needed the show, still need it. And not only was it directed by this incredible artist named Michael Arden, but it also had these beautiful people attached to it. And so it didn't feel real. And so I got to walk into this room, imposter syndrome galore. I was like, hey. And we got to rehearse this beautiful piece very fast. And I didn't really know, I didn't have time to breathe. I kind of like it that way. I kind of like just doing it and being
I
like,
love
figure it out later. And now I've had all this time to really feel what that felt like. But yeah, when we opened, it was a moment in time where I was like, I think it was the first time in my life where I was truly aware of where I was and how I felt about it. So many dreams realized with that show. I got to be on Broadway. I got to be a principal on Broadway. I got to sing a song by myself. I got to record a cast album. We won a Tony Award. And then the one I didn't even think was going to be, I became a Grammy nominee because of it. And
Yes.
so it it is a gift. All I don't like. I don't have the words to describe what Parade was for me, and continues to be. But the way that it touched so many lives, but the way that it touched mine and my peers around me too is something that I'll be eternally grateful for. Um, yeah, it is the first time that like even if I have imposter syndrome still, I still feel like sometimes I'm not the best actor, right? But like there was no question I did that, and I'm grateful for the people who trusted me to do that. I'm grateful for the peers and relationships I made through that. But I am so grateful for an experience that is a dream come true that allows me to like be a part of a show that tells a beautiful story and is a specific example of how theater can really impact this world. Um, yeah, it feels like a very special moment because it is a real thing that happened, is a real thing that continues to happen, and it is a real thing that makes people feel something. It is a version of theater that everyone strives to do, and I got to do
Yeah. I mean, I have tears and chills, and I'm
it.
just so grateful getting to like look back on that because I think that show, I mean, I've been a theater kid since I was 7. So,
Yeah.
to be 16, 17 and discover that show and get to be the smallest part of shining light on what the story means, I think for me, it really helped me rediscover the importance of theater and what theater means. And not a lot of shows have the power to do that. And watching that was truly one of the greatest gifts.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against the shows that are fun, feel good shows that make you laugh. Those are beautiful too. But this one, like, whoa, tears at the
This one
heartstrings. It makes you think.
Yeah. Yeah, I like you brought it up and I do want to talk about if you're okay with that, your audition process, because I know you did have to leave Wicked early and you weren't part of the City Center company. So I do want to talk a little bit about that if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. I was in DC with Wicked. We were there for about 2 months, and so we got to sit down and do that thing. But I got an audition while I was there, and I sent in a tape, and they sent me to a final callbacks for those parts. Frankie cover, young soldier, and then they said you have to come in for a callback, final callback session. I was like, okay, that's exciting. And so, me being the person I am, I don't like calling out of the show. There's nothing wrong with calling out of the show. Take care of yourself. But I was healthy and I wanted to, like, I had limited time left. There was one more city left on my agenda. And I was like, I don't want to miss it. Right. And I also didn't want to lose money. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to call out of the show. My audition was on Tuesday, I think, and I booked a train from DC, the Acela train, at 4 a.m. So I took the 4 a.m. train and I got into the city, and my audition was downtown. And I walked in and I saw a bunch of people I know. In the audition, you see the same kind of archetype of people, right? Like you see people who look like you, who do the same things as you, and it's fun. We're all friends, and so it's like, hey, how you doing? And so I got ready and prepared myself. I had my suitcase because after the audition, I was going right back on the train to make it to DC. And yeah, I was also at the same audition as. Sorry, someone's calling me. Someone, the same audition as Kelly Barrett and Beth, who were in the show with me, which was really fun. And I didn't know it at the time until later. So then they called me in and we started working on the material. And, as an actor, you can kind of feel the vibes. And if it feels good, you're like, oh, this could work. Maybe this will work out. And so we only worked on the Frankie Epps material. And I was like, well, that's interesting.
Right?
We did picture show. We did funeral sequence just at the end. And we did two sides. And they gave me notes for the sides. So we did it a few times. We did the other side, I did a few times. We did both songs and we got notes and I was like, okay, I'm in here for a while. And then they started testing my range and I was like, oh, something's happening. And so we started singing a little bit. Everyone was there, of course. Jason Robert Brown, Michael Arden, they were also on Zoom and everyone was there. Yeah, and so then we were talking, and a part of the audition was you had to say, you have to do a monologue in a Southern dialect or tell a story in a Southern dialect. I don't like a monologue. I think they're not for me. And so I told a story. And I had the room laughing with me about me and my twin. It was really fun. And then I felt really good. And after that, I left. I left the audition room. I got my stuff together and I was down the street, just left the building. And then the monitor, who like kind of lets you in and out of the room, ran down the street. Jake, wait, they want to see something else. What? Okay. And so I come back in, I discard all my stuff, and I walk back in with nothing because I just ran back in. They said, so sorry, like, we just want to see you. Can you sight read the entire funeral sequence song? I said, no, for sure, I can sight read that. Yeah, thank God I knew it, but also I can sight read. It's just like daunting to do it, right? So I'm glad I had a little bit of the idea in my head of what it sounded like. I didn't have the sheet music though, so there was Tom, the music director, came up next to me with his laptop this close to me, and I'm emoting and singing and sight reading for these people, and I'm just like, giving it my shot, and then they start watching me. Like, we do the thing, it feels good. We start talking again afterwards. They hold us up for a little bit and we're, just chatting, having a good time. And they're like, great, thank you so much. And they let me go. And I run to the train, run, run, run. I just make it on that train. They're literally doing final call. I make it, I sit down. And if you know DC, the train station is nowhere near the Kennedy Center where we were performing. So I had my backpack and my little bag, and I took an e-bike to the Kennedy Center, and the show at that night was 7:30 and the half hours at 7. So I got into the building at 7:30 on the dot. I mean, at 7 on the dot, right at half hour. And so literally made it. No one knew a thing. No one even knew I left. And then the next Monday, I got a call saying I'd make my debut, and lost my mind.
I mean, your funeral sequence will forever be imprinted on my soul. Like, do you know that like one song where people are like, we'll give you $1,000 if you don't cry when you listen to this song? Like, if they put funeral sequence on, like that's it. I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you're just an incredible actor and it's an honor to watch you shine, but your vocals in that song, thank you, Grammy nominee Jake Pedersen, ladies and gentlemen. Like
I know.
that was everything. Oh,
Oh, thank
so
you.
I do have to ask, just from an acting perspective, when you were first given the script for this incredible piece of theater, how did you approach it and interpret this story, knowing that it was a real story and the people that you were playing were real people?
Yeah, we were given a huge dramaturgical, like novel, if you will. There's a book that you can read. I didn't read all of it, but I did read the entire dramaturgic packet that was given to us, and so that was very helpful. It is, of course, based on a real person, and so I did as much research as I could of him. He's a child, and so I think just making sure that I am staying in touch with the idea that I, Jake Pedersen, would not do and say these things that were so ugly and gross at the time. But this person who did, and it's also based off and, judged for the musical theater purposes, does. And, making sure that I do it in a way that is responsible.
Yeah.
And so for the packet, I'm grateful for the peers in we had a group, affinity groups that we took care of each other in. We had a lot of resources given to us. But in terms of my own work, I just kept it in touch. Like I would even like check in with some actors of mine, be like, hey, just making sure I don't like doing these things to you. Specifically Ben, I would go to Ben's dressing room and be like, hey, just let you know, I think you're great. I don't get to see you. What's your favorite candy? So I would get him his favorite candy and leave him a note every so often just to be like, hey, we don't experience life together except on stage when we're saying ugly things to each other. So, from my process, I like to just make sure we're maintaining some sort of healthy balance of letting go and people calling, what's it called? There's a name for it. Don't remember it, but just like letting the process be in the theater and letting it go. And that's kind of what I kind of tried to do my best. Didn't always work. But yeah, when it comes to doing the actual work, Michael Arden helps me with the funeral sequence, with all this stuff, letting go and just letting a rip, really, and accessing points of myself that I've never really gotten to do on a stage, let alone on Broadway. So it was really exciting to tap into this emotion, even though that's not what you chase. You don't try to chase emotion as an actor, but like I got to, it just came, right? And so how I got there was difficult, but also part of the process and journey. And, I learned a lot of how to like take care of my mental psyche through it all after the fact as well too. But it was exciting to be a part of this process to even access those things. So yeah, it was a challenge for sure, but I would take that any day.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue. I was just about to ask, what was your favorite part and most challenging part about being in the show?
My favorite part was just probably being in it, really, like just doing this beautiful show. Selfishly, I loved doing the funeral sequence just because that was.
Perfect. I miss it so much.
Yeah, but it was so fun to sing. It was such a beautiful piece. It's so gut wrenching, and like just making sure it was authentic was so hard. But that also made it so hard. It was a part of the show that still happens on tour too, where we all turn around and we look at the wall, and you know, we find out Mary Fagan didn't come home last night, and I'm kind of just preparing myself. I would touch myself like on my chest like this, and then on my stomach just to get in tune. and I close my eyes and I breathe as much as I can. And then I run off stage and I have a moment, like maybe not even a minute long before the funeral sequence begins. And so I put myself in a dark little corner that we had at the Jacobs and just get ready and, breathe and think of all the things that I need to think about and get myself to a state that is able to and vulnerable enough to do something like that. But there were some nights that was really hard to control. Um, the emotion that did arrive from that, and it also, I used it in a way too. But then there were moments where I judged myself and I couldn't get there. There was only two performances that I nothing wrong with not crying, doesn't mean that you won or not, but there were two performances that I did not cry, and for some reason I judged myself. There was no need to do that. I know that now and all that stuff, but it was hard to like judge myself on something that doesn't really matter, but I wanted to get to, right? I had this version of what it looked like, and that was hard to release that. But other than that, it was a really complex moment, my favorite and hard moment at the same time.
Yeah, I know. It was so hard too as an audience member, watching that and seeing it unfold, especially watching people who didn't know the show and just like seeing the surroundings and like what I think was so special about that show is you experience it together. Like you do with every show, obviously, you're all sitting in a theater together, but specifically with Parade, those moments of silence and the moments of audible gasps and like you say, like a lot of the things you say and do in the show are not things you would do as people. And like it's so crazy that we got to experience that and it's so special because this show is so timely and important. I won't get into that because I can TED talk that for 10 hours. But I have and I will. But it's such a special, important show, and I'm so grateful that it's out on tour and that the world gets to see it because it's a gorgeous one. So now I'm excited because one of the best nights ever, Parade won the Tony Award for Best Revival, and you were also nominated for a Grammy
Woo!
as a principal vocalist on the cast album. So how did you approach portraying Frankie and delivering such a beautiful and powerful score in a way that felt authentic to you as Jake, but also authentic to the story?
Yeah, it goes back to like the dramaturgic stuff of it all still again, but I have a way that I like singing and a way that I kind of like acting as well, and I try to stay grounded in characters like that, and I try to bring myself to that. I think that I learned on the tour of Wicked that you don't have to put on as much as I thought. So just letting myself be in those given circumstances that are real ones that happen, just and how that would make Jake feel, but also put the lens of Frankie Epps on it a little bit. And that's kind of how I brought myself to it. But yeah, I did take a lot of care on how I vocally did it as well,
Mhm.
because there is a dialect, there is a sort of tune to it, and Jason had some insight on that, as of course, as well. And so it was fun to play with just the time that goes by too, of how, like, I don't know how well I actually did it, but when he starts out, he's very juvenile and young, and we learn about the two of them in the picture show, and they're like singing like this, it's a really fun tune, and it's like young and fun and happy, and then he goes to this guttural experience where like that wouldn't be the same sound. And so I try to emulate that in some way in my vocal quality, and I kind of just get to sing down in a way too, but also let the emotions impact it as well, because
Yeah.
that's a human thing that happens. Musical theater is about the storytelling at the end of the day, not how you sound, but we're telling stories. And ideally, you sound perfect at the same time, but it's okay if it infiltrates and it's not always perfect. That's what makes it human. And releasing into that made me, feel better. And then at the end, he grows up a little bit and becomes a soldier. And so, how does that sound, right? And so, just getting to play with the timing and how that impacts the human voice and the human experience helped me a lot. But yeah, I was very, very lucky to be a part of that company, and we won that Tony. And then all of a sudden, we won. We were nominated as a company, but then I was picked single-handedly for four vocalists, and that was a wild dream come true. So yeah, it, woo, blessing.
I know the vocals in that show, they hold my heart. The funniest thing too, I made this comment to Charlie when we were singing Picture Show together, because obviously it's one of my favorite tunes to sing, how all the Frankies do the scats at the end differently. I'm like, what's the like what's the line for that?
Well,
Like
that's the thing. It's written out, right? And I was like, "What?" And so I tried to like
I know.
emulate that, but I was like, "Okay, well," and no one really helped me out. I think I just did it, and Jason's like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And so I was like hoping that it was good, but everyone does do it different. I think
Everyone does it differently. Like I was reading the sheet music just to make sure I like sounded okay, and I was just like, oh, here's the end. I was like, here you go. I was like, everyone sings it differently, and it's gorgeous. I
It's
love that score. My favorite was the little series they did of Jason with the little like tidbits that people wouldn't normally pick up on, and that was special.
it's so good.
So, since Parade was your Broadway debut, what was your highlight moment from the show? Was there something you look back on most fondly?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them, a lot of fun moments. I think opening was a beautiful one, just because it was such a thing, and it was the first time we got to like be a company and be like, we did this, and now it's kind of we're releasing into it. It was the first time we realized that we're open, and now this means something else. But we got to like celebrate the work we did and a party with other people, but we also got to like circle up on stage. And we even had a moment where everyone who was making their Broadway debuts went in the center. And I was like, this is nuts. And so that was a beautiful moment for sure. And then I think closing night also was so hard and so beautiful because it impacted so many of our lives in the world. And so those two moments, opening and closing, I'll never forget those. Sure, there's so many nuanced moments that are so fun to celebrate in between too, but there's nothing like celebrating with the people about the thing we did together. It is a ensemble piece through and
Yes.
through. And
Yes.
those are the moments that I can definitely feel like, yeah, realized, and we all know that together. We all knew we were doing something together. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. That was the most special show, and I am grateful every day. Like you said, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Grateful every day for that show. Oh, so now we're gonna do a quick couple generalized questions. So, all the roles you've stepped into, are there a few that particularly stand out to you for specific reasons?
Um, Yeah, I actually really loved writing Kevin Taylor. I played this little intern kid and I loved it because it was a new show and I got to put my own little spin on it and we learned and changed things through the process. Love that so much. I love musical theater when it's new and like you get to create with it. It's all I've been doing recently too, so it's like really exciting. So yeah, I loved him. Uh that was fun. I also loved Frankie, of course, like that's my debut. But yeah, all of them are so special for sure. But the ones that stand out, of course, are Frankie. And I think writing Kevin Taylor was a beautiful one too, just because of the different levels of like artistic fulfillment.
Yeah. Is there a particular project or moment that you feel truly defined you as an artist and a performer?
Yeah, Parade for sure. Definitely defined me. And I was like, wait a second, this is nuts. And I think one early on was the Gene Kelly Awards. Was something that like woke me up, and I was like, wait, okay, something's happening, and I know kind of what I want to do a little more. So those two moments were distinct. Like I did it, and I'm gonna continue doing it. And the other one was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Those two.
Oh, and last but not least, looking back on everything you have achieved in this industry, what advice would you give your younger self entering the industry?
My younger self. Um, I think I tell my younger self that to trust the process, even though it's annoying. And like that, even that phrase alone is annoying.
Real, that's real.
Trust the process because your process is yours and yours alone. What is meant for you will be for you. Everyone says that. But I do think it's true. I do think that if you just lean into the fact that you can do as much work as you can, that the work will follow in the way that it needs to. It's a hard pill to swallow, but just keep on enjoying the ride and be that sponge, really, the sponge part.
Be that sponge. Jake, thank you so much for joining me on the Inspiration Show. You're truly one of my favorite people and performers, and I'm in constant awe of you and your incredible talent. And you've had such a meaningful impact on my life and my journey, and it was such an honor to have you here. You're the best. Thank you for inspiring me.
For having me, and thanks for saying all those nice things. I truly can't wait to continue running into each other. It's a small little world, and I can't wait to work together. That's what will
I
happen.
can't wait.